And a very pleasant good evening, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of WhiteBoard Weather, the winter weather special edition of WhiteBoard Weather. And I got to tell you, I'm digging it. What I'm digging is I got some jazz music playing in the background. I'm drinking a cup of coffee. I got on sweatpants, and I'm enjoying a Kit Kat. And we're talking weather. This is the most chill, laid-back winter forecast I have ever given and probably ever will give. So sit back, relax, and chill with me. Get yourself a Kit Kat, get yourself a beverage. We'll talk about some winter weather. Trick-or-treating just ended in my neighborhood. 8 o'clock. I'm personally glad they moved it. It was chilly, but it was nice. No rain, no wind. Before we get into all the details, this is the most accurate winter forecast you're going to get. I have been doing this for 23 years, and I'm pretty proud of the track record that I have. Not right every year, but most years I'm pretty damn close. And in addition to forecasting the winter for the last 23 years, now 24, I have been experiencing Pittsburgh winters for 50 years. So I know a thing or two about Western PA winters. So you've come to the right place is basically what I'm telling you. And save your questions. I'll open it up for some questions at the end. I do want to tell you that I'm working off of a device, so I only see comments come up about 2 or 3 at a time. So I'm not going to see a full page of comments, but I'll try and get to some of your questions a little later on. Let me first, while I have you, acknowledge some of the fine sponsors that I have here at Pittsburgh Weather Now and WhiteBoard Weather. This is the webpage. You've probably seen it by now, hopefully. It's PittsburghWeatherNow.com. That's where you can get to the winter or Pittsburgh Weather Now shop. That's where you can get to some of the informational videos I've been posting throughout the week from my buddy Paul Pastelok out at AccuWeather. And that's where you can always access WhiteBoard Weather in the morning and in the evening. Now, a couple of folks I want to draw your attention to. And these are sponsors that when possible, I ask that you please support. Braun Bostich and Associates. They are financial planners, financial advisors, financial wizards. They post the all-weather wealth tips every Monday. You can access all of their all-weather wealth tips right at the homepage of PittsburghWeatherNow.com, and you can scroll down the page and you can see the whole library is posted right there. Now, first off, they're very informational and educational. And if you're thinking about a financial planner, go with these folks, man. They do my retirement planning, and I'm certain they can help you out as well. Braun, Bostich, and Associates. Also, a shout out to Remax Select, the Lisa Wilson team. They are a proud partner of the Pittsburgh Steelers and also a proud partner of WhiteBoard Weather and Pittsburgh Weather Now. This is your go-to for any real estate. Buying, selling, or maybe just kicking the tires. Give Lisa Wilson and her team, which is one Shelley Verzella, a call. You can access their information right from my homepage. Remax Select Lisa Wilson team, a proud partner of the Steelers, and PittsburghWeatherNow.com. All right. Now that I've acknowledged some of my fine sponsors, I also want to acknowledge and say thank you to my buddy again, Paul Pastelok. out at AccuWeather. Paul and I have been buddies for many years. He's one of the best long-range forecasters in the business, and just a great meteorologist all around. I always consult with Paul when I'm putting together my winter outlook, because sometimes you go to people that are smarter than you to get information and guidance that you need, and Paul is one of those guys for me, and a big shout out to him, because without Paul Pasteluck and the research that he does, I'm not sure that I could do and be successful with the research that I do. So thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. All right, now let's get into the winter forecast. That's why you're here. Want to show you some things, and I'm going to explain it. This is the long version of a winter forecast. I'm not just going to blow you some numbers and then blow out of here. I want to explain everything so you understand it in full detail. One of the things that we look at in long-range forecasting is the what's happening with El Nino, La Nina, El Nino. It's called the Southern Oscillation. ENSO is the acronym for it. And you always look to see if it's in an El Nino phase or a La Nina phase. In this case, this year, it's none of the above. It's what we call neutral. And here's the way it looks. This was as of early in October, about a month ago. If you look, I know this is hard to see sometimes, but over here, that's Mexico. If you know your map, that's Mexico, that's Central America, and this is the Pacific right here. And then over here is when you're getting on over toward Australia and such. So here is where you look for that change in water temperature. And right now, it's what we call neutral. Everything is acting as it normally does. You got colder water here off the coast of South America and the warmer water here on the other side of the Pacific. So everything in the Pacific is good. It's normal. Now the other thing we look at is what's called the North Atlantic Oscillation. That is when you have high pressure, blocking high pressure here, or it sinks a little further south. This is what's called a negative North Atlantic Oscillation, when you have blocking, and that drives cold air down into the United States because storm systems can't go out in the Atlantic. They just go south and then go up and over the ridge. When you have a positive North Atlantic Oscillation, everything's open up for business. Everything just zips on through, and that leads to warmer temperatures across the eastern half of the United States. So this is more of a zonal, or what we call Pacific flow. Everything just keeps moving along. There's no blocking. So we look for either a positive NAO or a negative NAO. The negative would make it cold and snowy. The positive would make it warmer. So this is a big thing that we look at in the long range. Will the North Atlantic Oscillation be positive or negative? Something else we look at. This is snow cover. And this is the latest. This was as of yesterday. This is the snow cover map for North America. Everywhere you see white, obviously, are places that have at least some snow on the ground. Typically, you want to see larger snow cover across Canada and deeper snow cover this time of year in order to get into a colder pattern, because air masses come down out of Siberia, they cross over Canada, and the colder the ground, which would be snow covered, the colder the air mass. There's a lot of gaps here in snow cover, and it's not all that deep right now. So at least that's telling me initially we're not going to transition to a cold pattern and lock in for any length of time. So that's another thing that we like to look at least heading into early in the season. So three of the things that I just ran down for you was ENSO, El Nino, La Nina. The big one's the North Atlantic Oscillation, positive or negative, because that will determine the path of the cold air. And then, at least early in the season, we look for that snow cover to the north, because they will take just a normal air mass and make it much colder. And right now, that doesn't appear to be the case. So at least heading into November, December, while it might get chilly, we're not going to lock in. It doesn't appear to cold weather for any extended period of time. So that's good news, at least initially. Now, I will take you over you've waited long enough, I guess. I'm going to take you over to the whiteboards I have set up. And I'll break down the winter for you and let you know what I'm anticipating at this point. So let us flip it around. First off, I'm going to hold you in suspense a little longer. I get a lot of questions. Well, first off, I get a lot of questions about the weather, period. Please make it a mild winter like I have any control. Please make it not a snow. Hey, listen, if it were up to me, it would be 70 and sunny every day. It's not. It's up to the guy upstairs. There's a difference between good and God, and it's 1-0. I may be good at forecasting weather, but I ain't God. So it's the man upstairs. Anyway, I digress. Trust me, there's nothing in the coffee, just coffee. So I'm going to be ramped up, man. I'm not sleeping tonight. All right, let's talk about, as I was saying before, one of the questions I get a lot is about a white Christmas. What is a white Christmas? Well, we get a white Christmas. Everyone wants a white Christmas. This is some particulars about a white Christmas. Snow and Christmas. Now, technically, what is a white Christmas? At least in terms of what is defined as, by the National Weather Service, a white Christmas is 1 inch or more of new snow that occurs on the 25th of December. So you need 1 inch or more on Christmas Day, between midnight and midnight. The chances of that happening in Pittsburgh are about 17%. So to technically get a white Christmas, the chances are a little less than 1 in 5. What is the most snow that's ever fallen on December 25th? 3.5 inches in 1909 and 1935. I am not old enough to remember either. What is the chance that we see at least flurries on Christmas? Would be a trace of snow. The chance is much higher. It's almost double getting 1 inch of snow. 38% chance that we would see flurries on Christmas Day. And officially, I look back, we've had a trace or more of snow 2 of the last 5 years. So 3 of the last 5 Christmases, there's been not even a flake of snow in the sky. 2 of the last 5, there's been at least flurries in the air. So that's your particulars about snow and Christmas. Now you're edumacated. All right, let me get over to the maps. Winter outlook. This is what you want to know. As I said, the large scale influences. Right now, at least heading into winter, is a lack of a significant snowpack. And yes, Jacqueline, I should have had a drum roll. Let me give. Okay, it's lack of a significant snowpack early in the winter. So that means we're not going to lock into cold for any length of time, at least not right now. We have a weak to neutral El Nino, so that's really not going to have any impact on winter. The North Atlantic Oscillation, I told you about, educated you about it. Positive versus negative. A positive NAO leads to milder temperatures. A negative leads to blocking, leads to colder temperatures. So the NAO, whether it's positive or negative, is a big influence on weather patterns in winter. The position of the polar vortex. Right now, it looks like the polar vortex is going to stay where it is early in the winter and then may shift south the mid to latter part of the winter. And I'm going to tell you this right now. December, that is the month that could be the X factor. Everything I'm telling you right now could possibly hinge on what happens in December, because given a lot of these large-scale influences, if you look back in history, and I like to use history a lot as my guideline, in all of the years I've looked at that have a similar type of setup, December was the X factor. If December gets cold and snowy, that's usually the case for the rest of winter. If December is mild, we may end up on the milder side of winter. So December is going to be the X factor, and that's where my particular forecast may need to shift its track later on in the winter. General highlights of what I expect right now. A transient chill, which means coming and going of chilly weather November, December, not locking in. I think the cold air is more locked in January and February. In terms of precipitation, I think this is pretty much, I'm really comfortable with this. I think we're going to see frequent rounds of precipitation, an active pattern most of the winter. That doesn't mean all snow. I think we could see some chilly rain events, and we could see more mixed events depending on, again, the position of the cold air. But I think we'll see frequent precipitation. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be all snow. It could be one of those where we have a system coming in that maybe part of the area gets rain and part of the area gets snow. So that's something to watch, which are actually big pain in the ass systems when you get those mixed systems. I do expect, since I'm looking for a colder January and February, I expect we should do pretty well with snowfall those months. I'm looking for some big hitters of 3 inches or more, January and February. I think we'll get 4 storms in January and February that will produce 3 or more inches. Now, if you look at Pittsburgh history, we are generally a nickel and dime sort of snow place. A lot of our snowfall here is usually ½ inch here, 1 inch there, 1.5 inches. We typically don't get big storms, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 inches of snow. They happen infrequently. We frequently get those 1 inch, 1.5 inch type of events. However, I do expect, again, January and February, about 4 storms that could give us 3 inches or more. So I think it could be colder and snowier in January and February. That said, we go to the winter outlook. And I'm going to explain this to you month by month. Snowfall for the season, I'm projecting 46 inches. You can look at the month by month breakdown. 2 inches in November, that's pretty close to average. About 8 inches in December, also fairly close to average. Where we start to see the numbers jump are January and February. I think January we're about 16 inches, and February a little under 12, and then March back close to average 8.3. When you add it all up, it's about 46 inches. Now, climatologically, the average is 39.5. So I am projecting us to have a slightly above average snowfall for the entire winter to the tune of about 6.5 inches. Last winter, we had 36.6 inches. That means we're going to be about 10 inches above where we were last winter. By the way, I was the only one that had us below average with snowfall last winter. Just FYI. Anyway, 46 is what I have for the winter season. Temperature-wise, month by month. Now, the numbers you see there, 44 in November, December 35, January 26, 30 in February, and 39 in March, those are the mean average temperatures for the month. The November temperature is above average. The December temperature is above average. January and February are below average, and March will be near average. So I think we have 2 above early in winter, 2 below middle of winter, and if you consider March a winter month, which I do, near average. So I think at the end of winter, and this is going to sound like I'm hedging, but I'm not, 2 above, 2 below, and 1 near, winter's going to end up being temperature-wise fairly average because you average out all 5 months. Again, cold transient November and December, cold more locked in January and February. So that's the breakdown. You can apply this to anything you want. Ski season, again, probably a slow start, but it should pick up just after the holiday with some colder air locking in for longer periods of time. So that is the breakdown. Now, again, I don't want to poo-poo and say December is going to be some walk in the park because all it takes is 1 inch of snow to fall at the wrong time around rush hour and it screws everyone up and it's a pain in the ass. I get it. But the overall outlook has snowfall near normal early in the season and then jumping above normal in January and February. So that's your winter outlook for 2019 and 2020. Now, all that said, at this time, I will be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. So fire away at will. I'm going to enjoy some coffee, some jazz music. Oh, start putting the questions in. I do want to give one more thing. I forgot about this. Lake effect. Lake effect. The Great Lakes right now are running about 2 degrees warmer than they normally do, what would be considered normal. So the lakes are a little warmer than normal. Now, when it comes to water temperature, it doesn't change like air temperature. There's a lag, greater lag. As we saw in the last 24 hours, air temperature can flip-flop very quickly. You can go from 66 to 36 in the course of 12 hours. It takes longer for water to get colder. It takes longer for the water to turn over and the temperature to change. So, the fact that it's 2 degrees warmer than usual in the Great Lakes is fairly significant. That means it's going to take longer for those lakes to get colder to the point at which lake effect wouldn't be an impact anymore. All that said, what that means is lake effect season could last well into January this year. So anyone that travels up 79 along that Interstate 90 corridor, or anyone that lives in the lake-enhanced areas, if you're watching from, say, Mercer, Venango County, Forest, Crawford County, I think it could be, depending on the path of systems, but the water temperatures being warmer is significant because it potentially could be a more active lake effect season longer into the season. So there you go. Jennifer's up in Erie. That's for you, Jennifer. All right. Now, fire away with your questions if you have any. If I missed something, I don't think I did. I tried to cover all the bases. But if you have a question, please feel free to fire away. I'm enjoying my coffee and my Kit Kat. It's a nice combination, by the way. If you're just joining, welcome to the winter special of Whiteboard Weather. Now, this is going to be the fun part. If you see this information on a broadcast, you know where it came from. Because I would not be surprised if people at those broadcast places were checking in to see what I was saying. I know they have in the past. I wouldn't be surprised. Yes, I am eating my boy's candy. Does that make me a bad father? Somebody's put in there about freezing rain. As I said, I expect an active pattern most of the winter. Precip to be there most of the winter. It doesn't mean it's all going to be snow. It's not going to all be rain. There's going to be some mixed events. I think there is a decent chance for more mixed events this winter, given until we kind of lock into a colder pattern. So just FYI. Yeah, freezing rain events could potentially be an issue earlier in the winter and maybe even into January as well. Reported snow amounts. The official snow amounts, I'm guessing that's what you're asking about. Those come from the official observation site, which is out at the National Weather Service office, which is not technically at the airport. It is in, I think it's Moon Township, but that's where the official observations are taken. Any more questions? A hockey travel weekend forecast. It depends on where you're traveling. Depends on where you're traveling. Chances of a major nor'easter. That's a tough one. Because there will be nor'easters. Probably, most winters typically have a handful, 2, 3, 4. So yes, there will be one. And given the projection for maybe a stormy pattern for precipitation as a whole, there's probably going to be at least a handful of nor'easters, yes. Below zero, that that's hard to say. The chances of that happening would probably not be until the latter part of January, mid to late January at the earliest. And for an extended period of time, probably not. Like snowfall, we typically don't get really, really bitter cold and stay that way for long periods of time. When it gets bitter cold, we might get that for 2, 3, 4 days, and then we break out of it. So I don't expect us to stay locked in to any sub-zero temperatures for any length of time, more so than normal. So there you go. Snow total for January was 16.2 inches. There you go. Woolly caterpillars are black. Cold with little snow. If it's cold, it's going to snow. The challenge is getting the cold to stay locked in for a period of time, at least early in the winter. So we covered all of that. I would ask you if go back and watch it at the beginning, because I tried to cover all the bases there. Somebody turn on the furnace tonight. It's going to be chilly tonight and chilly over the weekend, but it is November. Polar vortex. Yes, it's going to stay put early in the winter, I expect, at this point, and then probably shift a little further south heading into January. Now, interesting thing about the polar vortex. Don't get me started. The polar vortex has always been there, will always be there. It is nothing new. It is what we call a permanent weather feature, global weather feature. It hasn't been probably, more than 5 years when somebody in some media office somewhere thought using the term polar vortex really makes it sound bad. So the polar vortex is nothing new, but now it has some sort of hugely negative connotation. It's always there. It's been shifting every winter for probably as long as we've been around. So it's a permanent weather feature. That's like saying Bermuda High. Nobody says, oh, the Bermuda High. So the Bermuda High is always there too, like the polar vortex. So when you hear polar vortex, just know that it's always there. It just shifts its position. Can it be too cold to snow? Yes, it can be too cold to snow. It actually doesn't snow that much in Antarctica during winter there because the air can really get too cold to sustain ice crystals. I don't know that they get more than a few inches of snow over the course of an entire winter in Antarctica. It just never melts. But yeah, it can be too cold to snow. And the colder it gets, the drier the snow. You get that real fine snow. The closer to freezing you are, it's a wetter snow. That's why it's easy to pack, make snowballs. That's why if you go out on a 30-degree day, you can have a snowball fight. If you go outside on a 10-degree day, it's harder to pack the snow. You have to add moisture, or when you get heat from your hands, that condenses and forms water on the outside, and that's why you can pack it together. But the colder it gets, the drier the snow gets. So, snow is slippy, Veronica. You said it. Slippy snow. So there you go. The best snow is no snow. That's just my opinion. Somebody said the best snow is around 30 degrees. All depends on your activities. The best snow for skiing is the 20-degree snow. It gives that powder. It's really good to ski on. So there you go. Barb, you have the same cup. I'm glad. Thank you. Thank you. Yep, clocks go back this weekend. Don't forget, extra hour sleep tomorrow night. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up. I'm going to go and check out and see what additional treats that my young men got cruising the hood this afternoon. Hello, Kimberly from Cook Forest. Beautiful up there, I'm sure. Stick with us here, Whiteboard Weather. Be here Monday morning, 7 a.m. Wake up, Whiteboard Weather. And then every day next week at 3 o'clock. Have yourself an outstanding Friday evening. Thanks for hanging out with me for the last half hour. Please do me a favor. Share this winter forecast with all the people that you can. Do me a solid. Just click that little share button. Let's push it out there. Let's get everyone out there to see the Whiteboard Weather winter forecast for 2019-2020. And should, as I told you before, should this, what I'm looking at or have been looking at, change, I'll update you. Now, I told you December is the X factor. If there's a shift and it gets colder in December than I'm projecting for right now, then it's going to be a long winter. Because in these types of patterns with these similar, what do we call signals, when it's gotten cold and snowy earlier in December, it's tended to stay that way for the rest of winter. So let's hope that that's not the case. Let's hope we can just snooze and cruise right through November and December. And then I do think January and February will be rough at times. All right. That's going to do it. Have yourself a great weekend. I'll see you Monday morning, 7 a.m. Peace, everyone. Love you. See you Monday.